All right, welcome back to DTR's YouTube channel. As always, I'd like to start off by saying thanks to all our new subscribers and of course all our current subscribers. The channel is really starting to grow and we really do appreciate it. So let's get on with the next video. All right, welcome back to DTR. In this video, we're going to be focusing on repairing this rusted out cowl section. In the past, on other types of cars, I've replaced these channels, I've replaced entire cowls. This car is a little bit different, the GM car, the way it's made, starting with the dash. Some other cars I've done, like Camaros, this panel is usually a panel all itself, where in this case, this dash panel is the entire dash going down into like the instrument panel and the glove box area and all that. So this area right here, or this panel right here, isn't even something that's available. As well as going on to the cowl, I could have gone ahead and bought a inner and outer cowl section to replace all this. But for the sake of this car being in as good a shape it's in, to get an entire cowl section installed correctly, you have to open up so much of the car to get this in correctly. So to remedy the dash problem and the cowl problem, we have this panel that will solve some of the problems for that, and then this panel will take up some of the repair area going into the dash. It's not going to solve all of it, but it's at least going to get us back to where we need to be for the windshield to have, you know, the correct spot for it to lay on. So let's just take a quick look at what we got here. All right, we got all this rot in this dash, and then we got this rot on what is this cowl panel. Now, we also have a little bit of rot on where the cowl panel is resting on. Depending on what that all looks like, we'll have to address that once this panel is off. And that goes, yeah, we got some over here a little bit. I mean, if it's not too terrible, like these like little pinholes and such like that, since everything's been sandblasted and epoxied, these little things we may just leave be, close it up, and then seal it all up really good. Now, as far as the cowl panel goes, as I was saying, this cowl panel goes underneath these, you know, side cowl pieces and such. So all these spot welds would have to be opened up to get this in the way it's supposed to go in. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to use a partial section of my replacement piece because I want to maintain all of these factory spot welds so it's going to look as original as possible, as well as there's nothing wrong with this front section of the panel, so there's really no reason to cut it all out and replace it when this is the primary area that is let's say infected. Plus, everything is where it needs to be perfectly, all these like weather strip holes and things like that. So, if you get this panel in wrong or what have you, it can throw other things off, like, just everything. So I'm just going to use the section which is basically up here that I need. So basically we're going to take, this whole part out, probably split it off here somewhere, and then split these so far in to connect this part with the replacement, and then it maintains everything else. Now it's a matter of cutting this panel and cutting the replacement panel the exact same way, so when I lay the new one in, everything is going to line up exactly the way it's supposed to be. The other thing is the dash, the panel that's going to bridge some of this dash back together, does not go this far back. Basically what I'm going to have to do is just cut this edge just clean, enough to get it out of the way to get this piece out, but then be able to tie my other panel going here from here onto here. I don't want to cut it back too far and then end up with a gap that I have to fill in with another piece of metal. This obviously is the one spot I may have to. It's definitely not going to go back that far, but the matchup on this replacement panel to this panel is really nice. Everything, the profiles of everything is pretty consistent. Sometimes replacement panels, they kind of look the part, but they don't have the sharpness and the crisp lines that the originals do. This one, fortunately, is pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Other than, not sure what that hole would be for. All right, but it's not a big deal. That can easily be closed off. This panel is like one of those universal panels that fits on, Chevelle, GTO, this Oldsmobile. So it different cars have different options. So maybe that hole is for something else. I'm sure one of the car experts out in car expert world can tell me what that is. But for starters, I'm going to start getting this bad section out to fit up the new section. Okay, let's take a quick look at where I'm at and what I've done. First thing I did was on this upper piece, this had these returns that essentially had a bend going downward. Now again, this piece adapts to other cars, so that might be there for certain reasons. But for this case, I figured I would flatten that out and utilize it to bridge my dash. Now, as you can see, if you look at the piece, metal, you know, I take these bends out and now I bring this bend up, it will change the shape because it may have to be, you know, it may be shrunk or stretched or whatever the case, but you know, right now I got this wonked out looking thing, but I'm nowhere near needing to fit it. And the other thing is, once I take off what I need, it'll be much easier to get it into place and, you know, get it to fit the way it's supposed to. So it looks kind of messy now. Now the other thing I did was I cut off these little legs that kind of wrapped around up here. They would wrap around up here somehow. I think like that, I believe they were. Don't need those. I can, you know, hack it off where I need to hack it off because all of this is nice and sound and solid. Just got rid of those, and I have marked, again, when you're marking metal, use a scratch awl, don't use a Sharpie. This gives you a much more accurate line. It gives you a better line to make your cuts. Sharpies, you know, you're cutting through the line, you're cutting against the line. This, you're going to cut on one side of the line or the other, but that's just, you know, I use these metal straight edges, my square, and these scratchers or scratch holes, and they just make a much more consistent mark. So what I've done here is I left these, I'm gonna cut out here, and I'm gonna use these holes just as a reference. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these and leave some of this metal on, which I just realized that that's not going to work on that one, so I'm going to have to use that one and just cut this, mark this a little different. But anyway, like these, I'm going to leave this metal on here so that I can use the hole as a reference to get the alignment of the panel where it needs to be. After I cut this front half off, I can lay this panel down, use these holes as a reference, and then strike my line to then cut the original panel off, so that when this panel goes back down, it's going to go right back into place. So now it's time to, well, change those, because that wasn't right. So I'll have to use this one. I'll just come over to this one, I'll leave this hole there, use that one as a reference. But I'll get rid of all the rest of this front half metal that I don't want to use. So I'm going to get to cutting. So where we left off, this piece got cut off, and what was left was the flange going around here. The nice thing was most of it was so rusted that it peeled off simply with a hammer and chisel. Now, as I was saying earlier, we have some rust on this panel. Whoops, get that out of here. On this panel here, but where we have to weld it, the new panel, it's all mostly solid. So that will have no effect. This back here will have no effect on anything. So we're just going to leave that exactly the way it is. Okay, now here's where these little tabs come into play. You can see I have these punches in there, and that is putting the panel right where it needs to be, right back where the old one was. Now I have it clamped, and now that it's clamped together, I'll come back and I'll scribe against the panel on the parent panel to make the cut, so that'll lay flush together. Being that these are slightly different widths, I'm probably going to cut these straight across here so these don't have this little weird jog to them. And then again, I'll scribe along here, pull this back off, make those cuts, and then this will lay down perfectly flush. Now when it comes to the top side, I'll have to punch my plug weld holes along here, and I should be able to get a clamp in here to be able to clamp this together when it's time to weld it. let's take a quick close-up look at what we have so far. You can see where we're butted right up against the original panel there. Our overlaps are now cut off, and we're butted up nice and tight. So now we'll go back across, get all these plug welds finished up, and here it's not laying down exactly how it should, but as we go across we can get this knocked down, and if anything I can always run a screw into this to pull this down and get that nice and tight. But other than that, yeah, this side's the same way. It just needs to be worked down a little bit here, which the more welds you get on it, the more you can just adjust it with a hammer and get it right in place, and it'll go right where you want it to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and just finish up all the welding on this, and we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so now all the welds are ground. Everything's ground nice and smooth on the corners. Now it's time to move on to the second part of this puzzle. Alright, so we're all welded solid, all ground smooth, and ready to move on to the next step of this project. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, maybe you've learned something from it, please hit that thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, always hit that subscribe button to be notified for all the upcoming videos by DTR. And with that being said, as always, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.